So I've been given this copper salver from my mate Shinta, which he has hand hammered on this tray setting course. It's very lovely. And he's given it to me to buff. Buffing is basically a surface preparation method in which the article in question has all of its flaws and imperfections removed to give it a nice level finish for a good, the best, polish and finish. In this case, we're doing it the old Sheffield way, which is the only way. Got some hammer vanishing marks on it that need taking out leveling on around the swage. And I'll buff that out as well. Okay, so here we've got the piece as is before it's been buffed. Got lots of hammer marks in, obviously from the process, a few cuts and scratches. I can just cast light over this and, see the condition of the metal, what the surface level's like. But basically just got to try and get rid of all that, make it as nice and presentable as possible. So here I'm just offering up a felt, that's what you call a turn off, so it's been turned off on the back side, tapered towards the front. Basically I can just use the corner of this buff to get right into the back side of the well, right in and swage it in, make sure I get a nice sharp cut into that. And as we work the metal with the sand and the buff, we can see some marks opening up or appearing with the light, what we couldn't see before. So we just have to work it more. I have to be quite consistent with this one because it's not covering the whole face of what I'm buffing here, so I'll have to do a good job at blending it in, just to make sure I'm not going to create a line with the narrowness of this turn off. As you can see, the buff is worked right into the edge there, so I've gone all the way around it. And just change my buff now. So for this next process I've got a piece of scrap felt that I'm using, and I've got to make a little buff to get into where the well parts split from each other, and there's I think there's about 5 splits, so I need to swage into there with this turn off that I'm making, a really small one. So basically I've just made a rough octagonal piece of this felt, put a hole in it and then screwed it onto my spindle. And cut the felt out by turning it with a blade. I'm just using my stone here to true it up, and then a bit of rosin on the end to add some bite into it. Basically gives the sand more key onto the felt. So I'm just using the face of the buff, get right into that, swage right into that that little split in the well, and then I'm just facing off on the backside of the plate as well. And then using the edge of this turn off here, as you can see, using the face again in this bit, and dry buff it as well to see what the condition's like. Using this turn off now to just face off the back side of the wall and blend that in. So I'm just using a body buff here, I suppose, with a concaved profile to get onto the wells, buff the wells, get all the hammer marks out of them. I guess it's like a type of grainer or edging buff. It's basically a very dense, narrow felt that has a little notch shaped into the center of it to make it slightly concave to allow for the edge of the plate to be buffed. Not too deep so it doesn't round off the side walls too much, so it keeps the edge as much as 90 degrees as possible. So here I'm just changing to a body buff, small body buff, for blending in the backside wall here. Earlier on I've just swaged that in with that turn off, and now I want to blend it in, make sure there's no uneven surface level there. So as you can see here, I can still see some little undulations and dimples, little hammer marks and stuff like that, where the surface is still uneven. basically put a little bit more welly into it and run it through a few more times and keep an eye on the level until it evens out. Here I'm just buffing the backside, bottom of the plate. So I'm basically just going concentrically around the backside, bottom of the plate, up to the wells, and not the centre yet, just the side. Sort of crossing over each stroke as I do it to blend it in until that surface is nice and level, and at which point I can go from the centre outwards and blend it all in. And I'm just sort of dry buffing it a little bit here just to see what the surface conditions like. So I can see there's quite a few pinholes, there's a lot of uneven surface with hammer marks, etc. Lots of little cuts, pinholes mostly, which basically mean that I've got to keep going over this whole surface until they all come out. So I can't focus on specific ones, otherwise I'm just going to get little dips in it. So that's basically what I'm going to do with this, just keeping it consistent, going all the way over it until the surface is nice and level and all those marks are removed. Just doing a bit of dry buff in here now, just to check the surface, get all the strokes, all the lines in the same direction so I can cast some light on it and see if anything sticks out, and all looks okay. So that's the back done. I'll be able to check that in a bit, but as for first stage of buffing it, that's done. Now I can move on to the front. So just dry buffing with a small body buff here, and as you can see more clearly the hammer marks here, as you couldn't before, without the shine or the light against it. And they look quite severe in this light, so it shows we've got to put a bit more welly in. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And I've gone around it a couple of times on this course and decided to change over to a larger body buff to get some more cut into it. The larger the buff, the more work it'll do for you. Increases the peripheral speed of the motor. So after that, I'm basically just getting into those wells with a insider buff. And this is a sort of bulb shaped buff, conical bulb. So as you can see here, it's come in contact with a lot of it except for the top edge where you can still see some peeling marks. So I've got to pretty much just use different types of the face of this buff just to get in and keep working it until I can get the level nice and consistent. So I've used the top edge of that facing off of it, and now I'll turn it over and get into the bottom of it and making dead sure I can go just up to the edges and the corners of these wells. Make sure that I don't go over, it's vitally important, don't go over any of these edges. Keep all that sharp detail in, otherwise it'll soften it over and make a rounded edge, and it's going to look a mess with this type of thing. It's all been hammered really nice and sharp, so I want to keep that sharp detail in. Changing my spindle here, so I've got to put a narrow spindle on with a body buff, and I'm just blending in the bottom of the plate now from the wells. So I've gone around each well from the bottom, and now I'll be changing the spindle over. Working outwards from the centre to those areas where I've last buffed to meet up and blend over. And again, just like the back, got to keep it nice and consistent. Using this large body buff to get a lot of bite on it and a lot of work. As you can see, I've changed my sand here. The sand was getting a bit tired that I used before, so I've just put some new one to get a bit more bite in, because this surface in particular had a lot of heavy duty pinholes on it and need a lot of work. So there it is, that's the piece that's been buffed now. It's all buffed and blended in. So now I'm just brushing off to check all the surfaces. I've got this small brush with the trimmed down bristles to get right into these corners of the wells where the splits are, and to check that all my buffing has been consistent. So basically this brush is going to show me whether I've cut in anywhere a bit too much, maybe with a buff, put too much pressure on in a certain place and I've created an uneven surface level, or I might have missed a part of it and not buffed it down enough and it's uneven. There might be a dip in it, or there might be some hammer marks what I've missed, or pinholes, etc. But it's really good for finding whether it crosses over the lines basically, so it's really good for finding any surface dips or anything like that. So once I've brushed over it, I can cast some light down at a light streak and look for any warbles in that light, make sure it's nice and even, and then I know I've done a good job. So just going over the surface, most importantly on the bottom, nice flat level surface, can check that with a light, and it looks okay, which is good. Now I'll go over the top, the front, get into the wells, have a look at them, make sure they're okay, and put some sand in, cross over the lines and cast some light on it, and check that the surface is nice and even. The light's going to tell me whether the surface is uneven or not by being able to see the light streak and tilting the metal down. And if that light streak warbles or moves in any place other than it being a straight streak, I'll be able to see and know that I need to do a bit more work in a certain area. So here it is, the final thing. It could come out really well. It's nice, even, level. Most important is that bit. Keep that nice and level. Wells come out nice. All blended in. All hammer marks come out of it. All bruises, sharp details in. Kept them, which is good. They came out well. Edge nice and level. That's come out nice. On the back, swaged it in. On the on here, kept that nice and even. Hard to get in there, but it's done. Back, level, yeah, looks alright that. If anybody else is doing one of these, if they do plate or a salve or out like that, the marking something, or even like well, you get away with a curved surface more easily, but if it's flat like this and it's level, just do your best not to put a huge hole in with your dividers when you're marking out the circle, especially on this, the top side. Back side, you might be able to get away with it, but this side, not ideal. Getting that out is a right bugger, and you have to keep your buff running all over it consistently to get all of this level down until that little pinhole disappears. You can't just concentrate on getting that pinhole out because you're going to end up with a little divot, and it shows. You might not be able to see it when you've done it, but if you finish it over, put polish on it, you'll see it. You cast some light on it, like that. Look at that light streak, and it'll go, it'll warble into it, and it'll look a mess. So it's not a mess, this one. Got it out, which is good. If you got to put that in, do it really shallow. Don't dig it in. Or you can put a piece of metal on top, put a piece of lead, sellotape a piece of lead onto your metal, or a piece of copper, out you want, soft bit of metal there, stuck on what you want to do, I don't know, double side tape it, anything. Use that as like a dummy piece, put your compass into that lead, I'm going to mark this, then you can mark your circle out, take that off, no mark, no centre pot, that's the way to do it. Do it on the back as well. So yeah, I think this looks great. He's done a really good job. This one's really very good for a handmade one, hand hammered. Nice and level, it sits nice and level on a flat iron. The edging's nice as well, neat, it's all even. But it's very good, and it's come out nice. Yeah, it's very impressive. He actually did this course with a fella called Angus McFadden. If anyone's interested in that, they might want to check out his profile. I'll leave a link. Well, that was my video on buffing. I hope you liked it. If you liked that video and you want to see more, I'm going to make some more videos on the stuff that I do. So maybe you'll learn something good from it, take away something valuable. Hopefully I can give that to you. If not, maybe you just want to tell me how I'm doing it wrong or something like that, and then you can do that too. That's fine. Hopefully you've taken away, something valuable. Hopefully you've been able to take away something valuable from this video. Or just make you aware about the processes that you might not know about. Not a lot of people know about buffing, and some of the other finishing techniques that take place within the cutlery trade. So if you do some type of practice within silver or metalwork or something like that, you know, it might be something that you want to check out, have a look in, do a bit of research into. There's plenty of books on it. Not a lot of stuff on the internet. Forget about that. Just look in, get some books, go to a library, something like that, you know. Remember those? Got books there, and then you can have a look at them. Proper information, stuff that you won't see on the internet. That'd be good for you. One of these, it's good. Sometimes they've got pictures in. So, ta-ra for now, and I'll see you next time.